But I want to now read to you, and if you'll bear with me, I want to read to you an article published in the opinion section of the platform on Friday. We got it out, and there's more to come on this or in this vein, about a group. And you will have heard about the disinformation project, largely Kate Hanna and Sanjay Aotearoa. Sanjay Aotearoa being, papers for defamation being filed against him in a district court and TVNZ for him calling Julian Batchelor, you know the guy, racist, or saying that he had hateful rhetoric, words to that effect. I see finally the mainstream media stuff picked up on that story, of course, a week after we'd broken it. A few stories were picked up this weekend. I see Jack Tame asking questions about the genetic claims of the Maori Party, which we talked about months ago. It's always nice when they finally realise what a story is, but they're all young. Anyway, the disinformation project is hitting quite a lot of headwind as people say you're just a bunch of Marxist advocates who are getting funded one way or another by the government and by a left-wing government. Well, I think the strategy now from the propagandists is to take the emphasis off the disinformation project, which is largely laughed at now and discredited, and put it onto a new group called Fact Aotearoa, which has been quoted lately in the woke media quite extensively as being the new experts on disinformation and misinformation and white supremacy. So I'm going to read the article we've got published. I'd like you to listen carefully. And this is a theme we're going to try and develop over the months ahead. We're really going to try to expose to you just how much of your money, of taxpayers' money, is being used to fund clearly partisan political activity. And that's being done through the guise and through a quite complex series of non-accountable charities who get taxpayer funds and don't pay any tax on it. A recently registered charity called Fight Against Conspiracy Theories, Fact Aotearoa, has been awarded $50,000 from the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet's Countering and Preventing Violent Extremism Fund for an education project to be launched in November 2023. So this is the Prime Minister's Department. Not subject, I think, to normal disclosure under the Official Information Act. The Prime Minister's Department it can argue that the advice it gives is confidential. But the controversial group has come under criticism for political bias, and the platform has found it has an unusual provenance for a counter-terrorism organisation. Fact, by the way, has previously been awarded $10,000 from the government-funded Internet New Zealand, where one Fact spokesperson, Stephen Judd, sits on the board. It was registered with charitable services in only March of last year. Very new organisation. The group's own trajectory could be described as extreme. According to one co-founder, that's a freelance writer called Anki Richter, the group began life as a Facebook group set up by a group of music festival-going friends during lockdown called Rabbit Hole Resistance. I do like that name. Richter told the official podcast of the New Zealand Skeptic Society last December that they started out as just a bunch of friends who were concerned about how some alternative festivals, especially one called Luminata in that case, were turning into full-blown conspiracy platforms. I've never heard of Luminata, so apparently they're like gathering a witches' coven. The friends then started a Facebook group which grew popular, and then a few of them who were a bit more action-minded started Fact, Fight All Conspiracy Theories, and Aotearoa. Richter's account of the group's coming together ran on a very fringe podcast. Mainstream media outlets have failed to account for Fact's formation and the background of its officers when reporting on the group's actions, which have received extensive and sympathetic mainstream media coverage from the very get-go. Its spokespersons are typically described as subject matter experts, and their political affiliations have not been interrogated by the media. Fact has not made it any easier for curious members of the public. The organisation's website does not list its membership, and officers have gone as far as to use pseudonyms and to digitally obscure who they are to dramatic effect. in at least one public interest journalism-funded documentary. That was Fire and Fury, I think. Since mid-2022, the names of officers have been restricted on the official charities register, so you can't find out who runs it, and annual returns are also unavailable for this registered charity. It's been argued by groups and individuals that engage in this sort of research and lobbying that fact does, sometimes focusing on fringe right-wingers, that strict privacy measures are needed to avoid potential harm or retribution from far-right actors. But this absolute lack of transparency also prevents members of the public from easily evaluating for themselves claims of partisan bias, which fact has increasingly come in for as it has turned its attention from COVID-19 lockdowns to alternative political candidates, usually from the right of the political spectrum. First local body candidates last year and now national election candidates. We did some digging. And we wonder whether disguising active partisanship is not also a strong motivation for this group. The platform has found that several fact officials are not only left-wing in their outlooks, but serve or have served as campaigners for the Labor and Green parties. IT professional Stephen Jubb was a long-time Labor Party member, according to his own website, and ran the campaign for Labor's candidate James Macbeth Dan's unsuccessful tilt at Ilam in 2014. In a write-up of the 2012 Labor Party conference on his website, he describes himself as sitting near the left end of the party on its policy spectrum. Another fact officer the platform can reveal is that the Green Party's convener for Christchurch East, Jacinta O'Reilly, is one of the organisers of FACT, and she's also one of the moderators of the now private Facebook group that preceded FACT, Rabbit Hole Resistance. Richter's husband, a Christchurch urologist, is also an officer and is a former nurse turned left-wing activist and freelance writer Amy Milne. And apart from being long-time personal friends, what FACT officers hold in common, rather than expertise in elections or disinformation or terrorism, is a politically left-wing activist outlook and some experience freelance writing. None of those involved are subject matter experts in counter-terrorism, extremism, the far right, mis or disinformation, and elections, and none of them have specialised public education in any of those fields. So that is the facts on FACT. FACT, an organisation that Stuff and TVNZ and RNZ and all the public interest journalist-funded journalists run to scream white supremacist, to talk down, to be frank, and I'll name the parties they're after. They're now after Winston Peters, they're after Vision New Zealand, they're after Democracy New Zealand, they're after Freedom New Zealand, and they're going to paint them all as nutters, which they well may be. But that we have a taxpayer-funded organisation so uncritically reported by a bought-off news media who are entering the political fray using public money is, to my mind, utterly corrupt. We have asked 4 or 5 of the officers of FACT, all the people involved, to come on and talk about and be open about their organisation. And what have we had in response, Ben? Yep, nothing. They'll talk to their lackeys in state-funded media, but they do not have the courage, and maybe it is that they know if they were to honestly answer questions about who they are, there would be public outrage. So that's FACT Aotearoa. Wait till we tell you, and this might take a while working on this, wait till we tell you about Paparoa. That'll really have you surprised.